Do-it-yourself projects, also called DIY. DIY projects have skyrocketed. They really increased over the COVID time because people were stuck at home and they're like, oh, I've been needing to fix this. I don't want anybody else to come in the house, so I'm going to do it myself, right? Well, in 2020, the overall value of the do-it-yourself or DIY market in the U.S. was over $400 billion. Whoa, pretty big, right? It is expected to reach revenues of around $878 billion by 2025. Anything from installing a shower, anything from building on a deck, painting, building cabinets, whatever it is, do-it-yourself is really taking off. Now, some of you are like, this has been going on for years. This is just who I am and what I do. Others of you are dabbling in it a little bit. And then there are those who know the liability and know our insurance can't handle it. And we stay away from do-it-yourself stuff like this guy, right? Okay, wherever you're at, the reality is the do-it-yourself or DIY market is really increasing. Now, here is an example. Here are some fails, okay? Fails. This is not from my home, just to point out. Look at this beginner's fail. This should be easy. Putting on a toilet. Putting on a toilet seat. Should be easy. Obviously, that is a mistake. Don't follow that example. What about the leaky shower? The leaky shower. Let's look at this example. This is a DIY fail. Still a toilet. Don't put that in the shower. There it is. There it is. Look at this. That is a DIY fail. Not easy on the eyes. Maybe it fixed the leaky problem, but I don't think your wife would be happy. All right. So then maybe you go outside. Okay, there's a problem. This do-it-yourself person did not factor in taking down the ladder before you do the beam. And then this last one would totally be what I would do. There's your answer to a mailbox. Just put a stool and a weight and tie it down, and there you go. Well, these are examples of DIY fails. Now, some of you are really good at it. And there can be a lot of money, time that can be saved if you are able to do things yourself. And that is great. And that is a huge move in our culture. But what happens is we get in this DIY mindset and we try to apply it to our relationship with God. We try to apply it to our faith. Let's say all of a sudden our marriage hits a rough spot. Well, do it yourself. Let's fix it ourselves. Or your kids are acting up. Do it yourself. Let's fix this. Pull up the bootstraps. We can get this with grit and hard work. The problem is when we take a DIY approach to spiritual things, we are doing it without God. Did you hear that? When we take the DIY approach to spiritual things, I've got a sin in my life. I just need to try harder. There's issues in this area of my life. I need to grow in reading the Bible. I just need to try harder. The problem with that is the do-it-yourself spiritually, again, is doing it without God. We need God to bring growth. We need God to bring healing. We need God to do the work. We need God working in our lives, which means we've got to let Him work. Now, I bring all that up because we are arriving in the final weeks of our study on the book of Psalms. And we are going to look at one today written by King Solomon. King Solomon was given wisdom, spiritual wisdom by God. And so he wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. And we see wisdom oozing through it, right? Well, there are 2 Psalms by which King Solomon wrote. So this is a psalm of wisdom. We need to pay attention to this. And his focus, 100%, is all about you've got to let God have his rightful place. Any work, anything we do without God is in vain. Is in vain. Let's go ahead and look at it. Psalm 127. Psalm 127. We only have two more to go. We have Psalm 139 and Psalm 150. Those are our final ones. But Psalm 127, I felt like this is important because this hits a spiritual issue that so many Christians, we trip up on, or we try to do things on our own. Okay, starting verse 1. Unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchmen stand guard in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. Sons are a heritage from the Lord. Children are a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are sons born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their enemies in the gate. So we're going to break this down in two areas. And the first one that we're going to look at is this. Without God, our work is in vain. Without God, our work is in vain. Let's look again at the first part of verse 1. Unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. Now, Solomon is speaking specifically, he says building a house, but it applies to anything that we put our heart, effort, time, energy towards. For those of you in school, you are building an educational plan for the future. And Solomon is saying, unless you give God your rightful place in that educational plan, it is in vain. You need God. Those of you who are married, you want to build a marriage that is healthy, that is spiritually strong. If God is not at the center of that marriage, every effort you do is in vain. In your battle against sin, whatever it is, if you are trying on your own and you are just getting that pull up the bootstraps mentality, it is in vain. Your family, healing relationships, whatever it is, Solomon is saying if you are doing it without God, if God is not at the center, if you're not surrendering it to him, it is in vain. Hebrews 3:4 reveals this. For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Is God the one you are allowing to build the things in your life? Maybe it's a career. Whatever it is, where is God in the process? Solomon says in Proverbs 16:3, he says, commit to the Lord whatever you do and your plans will succeed. Commit means from the very beginning, say, God, this is yours. Everything I do is going to be through you because I need you. That's what Solomon is revealing. One of my favorite truths in this whole kind of tearing down that do-it-yourself spiritual approach is what Jesus said in John 15. Now this is a day before he gives his life, and he is preparing and comforting his disciples. They're getting ready to have their world turned upside down. And so many times we look at things and it's like, okay, so Jesus probably gave them a 5-year strategy, right? You know, he gave them all of these tools and resources of how they could go and take the good news, the gospel of Jesus to the world. That's not what he does. He doesn't focus on production. He doesn't focus on the outcome. No, Jesus focuses on connecting with him. And again, this speaks to that mindset where we're like, I just need to try harder. I can do this. No, you can't. Jesus said, you cannot do anything without me. Let's look at this. John 15, verses 1 through 5. Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does not bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Now, you can do things separate from Jesus, but there's going to be no spiritual fruit. There's going to be no grace, no mercy, no blessing and provision. Apart from Jesus, there is no spiritual fruit. And again, whatever it is in our life, whatever is before us, whatever plans we have, whatever issues we have, whatever things we want to do, if we are not connected with Jesus in doing it, there's no spiritual fruit. Jesus makes it very clear. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of times, especially in things involved in the church, where I'm like, well, this is a God thing, and I'm called to be a servant of God, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work hard, and we're going to get her done. And it fell flat on its face because I was doing it. Because I was connecting with my own ambition, my own drive, my own knowledge, my own effort. That might be the story of many things in your life. We are not called to be the vine. We're not called to produce spiritual fruit. We are just called to be the branch that connects to the fruit producer, Jesus. And so if we step back and look at our life and go, am I truly connecting with Jesus, or am I just trying harder? Am I truly connecting with Jesus, or am I doing this in my own effort? Jesus made it very clear. The focus needs to be on connection and not production. The priority has to be abiding and not achieving. Again, whatever it is we're going through, if our focus is on being the branch, Jesus will bear fruit. I mean, that was the thing a couple weeks ago. I was on vacation, and praise God, because it was a time of rest and refilling. And the message I heard over and over again every single day was, Daryl, just be the branch. Just be the branch. And boy, even in me saying that and admitting that was allowing God to prune away some pride and self-effort. Even me admitting and surrendering to that was allowing God to prune away and bring me to the truth. I can do nothing without Jesus. Does anyone agree with that? I hope so. And if you are tired and worn out and all your efforts into the same result, ask yourself, am I trying to be the vine, or am I being the branch? So, we need to be the branch and let Jesus bear the fruit in our work, our school, our marriage, our family, whatever it is. From building and bearing fruit, Solomon addresses another area that we tend to labor in vain, and that is guarding, protecting that which has been built. Verse 1 again says, unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. That's the initial part. That is the part of, God, here's my family, I give it to you. It's got to be built upon you. But then the next part is, unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchmen stand guard in vain. So even if we allow God to be the foundation and allow Jesus to be the vine in whatever area of life, a business, family, relationship, education, whatever, we have to continually give Jesus that rightful place to guard and protect it. Everybody familiar with the Great Wall of China? Right? Huge. 4,000 miles, over 20 feet high. Its width ranges from 12 to 40 feet in places to keep out their enemies, to protect which they had worked hard to get. Well, their enemies got in. They didn't scale the wall. They didn't penetrate the wall. Does anyone know how the Mongols got through the Great Wall of China? Anyone, any history buffs? They bribed the guards. Here's the thing. We have an enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants to destroy everything God has given you. He wants to tear down everything that you've allowed God to bless your life with. And what happens is we get real comfortable with our efforts to resist or to protect or to guard. We get real comfortable and we let our guard down. We've got this sin under control. We let our guard down. The devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Don't you think he can easily just walk right into that unguarded area? Whatever it is. So not only do we need to commit and give God his rightful place in the beginning, we need to connect to the vine and let Jesus produce the fruit, but we need to let God protect it. Let God be the wall around our heart, around our marriage, around our family, around our business, around our work. Let God be the one that guards it. Because if we try to do it, we will let the guard down, and it will be in vain. Second part that we're going to focus on. The second part we're going to focus on is our need for rest. With God, our rest is in vain. Without God. Without God, our rest is in vain. Without God, our rest is in vain. Here again is what Solomon wrote in verse 2. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. Now, I hope you agree with me. There's nothing wrong with hard work. Some of you parents want your kids to hear that again. There's nothing wrong with hard work, okay? Hard work is a good thing. But rest is just as good. God does not want workaholics. God wants people who have a balance to know when to trust God, to know when to take care of their family, to know when to take care of their health, to know to take care of their spiritual life. You can work hard, but make sure you are being a branch and you're connecting to the vine. You can work hard, but make sure you rest and you are focusing on that connection. Because resting is ultimately trusting God. Resting is ultimately giving God his rightful place as your provider. Resting is being able to be completely in God's care. Here's a couple scriptures. Psalm 3, verse 5 says, I lie down and I sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. Rest is trusting in God's provision, and he sustains you. Psalm 4:8 says, in peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Rest is trusting in God, being able to give up worry, give up trying to control things, give up working so hard to get what provides for your family that you neglect the spiritual needs of your family. No, rest is making sure that you're connecting to the vine at all times, because that is your priority. There's no greater picture of this than what Jesus said in Matthew 11, 28 through 30. And this is actually an invitation. And this is how it starts. Jesus says this. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Everybody say this with me. I will give you rest. Rest! First of all, we need to understand, if we have the DIY approach, do it yourself, we will be weary and burdened. Because we're carrying a burden that we are not to carry alone. And so Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, some people read this and they go, well, rest means that we don't have to work. Well, we'll just join a retirement community early at age 22. No, that's not what rest means. Rest means that you work with Jesus. You let Him carry the load. You let Him walk with you in every area of your life. See, this picture of being yoked with Jesus comes from, in Jesus' time, a farmer would take 2 oxen to plow the field. 1 oxen would be young and immature and weak. That's us. That's us in the story. The other oxen would be strong and mature and know the work. And when we are yoked with Jesus, we can rest even though we're doing the work because, like the picture of the oxen, He's carrying the load. We still walk out whatever we're going through, but we don't walk it out in our own strength, in our own effort. We are yoked, connected with Jesus, and He does the work. He carries the load, and He moves us closer to God's provision and will. Amen? Whoa! And so we have to ask ourselves the question, in this area of my life, am I yoked with Jesus? Or am I trying to do the work on my own? Are you weary and burdened because you've been building and plowing in your own strength? Have you been working or even resting in vain because you've been doing it yourself instead of being yoked or connected with Jesus? His yoke is easy, His burden is light, because He is the way, the truth, and the life. And when we are yoked with Him, He makes a way. He carries the load. And the result is that we trust Him, surrender to Him, and we're the branch because we're connected to the vine. Your family needs you connected to the vine. They need you yoked with Jesus. Your life is void of rest without Him. Your job, your school, your relationships, your responsibilities, every single relationship needs you yoked with Jesus. Connect with Him. He is the builder, the fruit producer, the rest giver. Learn from Him. Connect with Him. He is the vine. We are the branch.